Welcome back to Local 4 Plus Live, everyone. Well, we are all in the throes of the holiday season. We're talking about shopping, planning travel with family, balancing work and family obligations all at the same time. It's so much. And of course, preparing for the holidays, which is no easy feat for any of us. Now, it's very difficult to incorporate self care in our daily routines when we're not in the throes of the holidays, but there is a way that it can be simplified and a way that we can start doing it now so we're not completely burnt out by the time January 2nd rolls around. Now, joining us is Dr. Leah Meadows, author of the book Me First Secrets of Self Care, to talk to us about her book and how we can take better care of ourselves starting now, not waiting for it as a New Year's resolution, to get us through this stressful holiday season and starting off the new year on the right foot. Dr. Meadows, thank you for being with us.
It's great to be here because I am so passionate about self-care.
Now, but
Well, first
before
of
we
all,
get started, I just have one question for you. You have a quote from your book that I want to start with that you say, while most Americans spend only 10 minutes a day on self care, if you use these secrets, which are your secrets, you can 10x the impact on your self care. Now, this is right up my alley because I'm a person who likes to get as much bang for my buck as possible. Everything in my world is like measured down to the minute, especially professionally. So before we get started, I'm interested in learning about you and what made you start focusing on self-care as a doctor.
great question. Well, in my mid 30s, I was suffering myself with undiagnosed Lyme disease. And
Oh.
this led me to burning out with working, being a mom, and even being a wife. So I had to develop my own secrets, my own self care regimen just to get my life back. And that's really how it started because I'd seen lots of different doctors and we couldn't find a diagnosis. But it was in doing these simple steps and health habits that really unlocked everything for me.
Okay, so then what inspired you to write a book and share all of this information? Was this something that you saw in your practice that a lot of people needed to learn more about? Because I'll be honest, I had some my own health issues and I would go to a lot of physicians and they were very clinical about it, like maybe this medication or maybe this. No one really focused on lifestyle
Mhm.
with me.
Absolutely. And I've seen that over my 20 years, 2 decades in practice. When you come into the doctor, you have one specific thing that maybe is bothering you. And oftentimes that doctor is going to focus on that one thing. So this is really dialing it down to a lifestyle foundational component. And so it's really important that we treat holistically our bodies because we've got physical, chemical, and emotional stress. So I was dealing with mostly physical stress with my patients, but they were not, no one had taught them how to address the emotional or even the chemical component of that stress. And that's where these three secrets came into play and how I developed it myself to help with our patient base and to help me first.
Okay, so let's get into these tips because I'm really interested in learning more about chemical stress and what that means. So let's start with your tips. Let's start with move because you say that's very important.
Absolutely. So we right now we have an epidemic in our country because sitting is the new smoking. And this really did start a lot during the pandemic. It just got worse with us sitting and not moving and not doing anything. So we have to move. We have to actually lift weights. And then also sleeping is so important and nobody's getting enough sleep, especially if you're not sleeping 7 hours of good quality sleep. So that's where most people start first. They tackle the physical component. Because if we're not doing these three things, we are neglecting ourselves on the most basic level.
So, how bad is it for people like me? Like, recently started tracking my steps here with the watch. How bad is it really for people like me who sit in front of their computer all day long, with the exception of standing and doing interviews for a couple hours a day?
Well, the standing interviews are terrific. So good for you for doing that. But sitting, we really want to sit every 50 minutes that we're sitting. We need to get up and get moving, even if it's like walking over and getting yourself some water at the water cooler, or if it's getting up and walking to the restroom, or just getting outside and doing a lap. It's super important because when we're sitting, that's the most stress that we actually have on our spine. And our spine contains literally everything that needs to go through our whole bodies. So it's really stressful to be sitting for the whole day. And then
Okay.
commuting as well. We're usually sitting when we're commuting. So
Yes.
that's going to be a big stress relief for your body and just for your whole health to get up and get moving.
Yeah, that's a great advice. So whenever I get the little buzz to stand up, I'm going to definitely start doing that.
You bet.
Um,
Yeah.
so next, let's talk about following this next step, which is eat. Now you say that there's some
Hmm.
simple things that we can add to our routine, some simple guidelines.
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, we've got this thing called the dirty dozen versus the clean 15. Now, we've all heard about eating organic, but the dirty dozen, these are the fruits and vegetables that we should never ever buy unless they are organic because of the chemicals. And this puts a toxic load on our body. So these dirty dozen even include strawberries and apples. And then the clean 15, you don't need to spend your money on organic for these ones. They're absolutely fine to eat if they're non organic. And you can find these on my website at drleahmeadows.com. It's got the lists right there. But then we also, beyond that, we don't want to be eating processed foods. That's another thing that's very, very hard on our toxic load and can just take us out. So I do love a good meal prep kit that comes delivered to your door with all the ingredients to make a nice healthy meal without having to use any processed foods. So that's super important. And then we're not getting enough supplements. Everybody needs to be taking these supplements because our soils are depleted. So we can't get in our food anymore what we need for our bodies to even survive, not even thrive. So minerals are really, really important. And also vitamin D. Everybody is depleted. And then with that, too, we just want to be drinking more water. Everybody's not drinking enough water, especially if you're drinking sodas or energy drinks. We got to throw those out and replace them with water. We need to drink at least half our body weight in ounces each and every day.
Yeah, the what I'll, so let me start with this. I'm very familiar with the
Okay.
clean 15 and the dirty dozen.
Good.
I am known to stop in the middle of the grocery store and be like, "Are avocados okay to buy, if they're
Yeah.
not organic?" How important is it really for us to avoid these pesticides? Because I just started doing it because I heard from professionals and leaders in the field
Mhm.
such as yourself. How important is it to really stay away from those pesticides?
It's extremely important. We don't, and the pesticides that we allow into this country, they're not allowed in Europe. So if you're there and you take a trip and you're eating pasta and you're eating all these foods and you're feeling great, but then you come back here and you're not, that's because we also have GMO'd. So genetically modified organisms, we're going to have that in our food base here. So it's really extremely hard on our bodies. It makes a world of difference if we can eat organically, if we can, and just stay away from the things that have these pesticides on them. And especially it's going to be in the corn, it's going to be in the wheat. If we can get rid of those things and eat organic, that's going to be so much better for us as well. It's not just chemicals in food, though. It's also the chemicals that we're putting on our bodies. So, on our face products, on our soaps and our makeup and just everything around us. So I've been using this new app. So at the grocery store or you go to the pharmacy, wherever you shop, and it's called Yucca, and you can literally just scan. It's so awesome, and
Love
it's a
it.
free app, and you can scan anything that you want, and it'll tell you whether or not there's hazardous chemicals in the product. And you'd be surprised some things that look really healthy are not, and vice versa.
No, that's great information, Yucca. We'll have to download that app. I have a few of them on, but they don't always quite work like you want them to. But staying on top of it is super important. And it's something that you said about like going overseas, which I've had this conversation with plenty of people in my life, where you go and you're just living it up. You're eating
Yeah.
things you would never eat here. You come back, you lost about 7 pounds, you feel amazing, and you don't know what it
Yes.
is.
Well, when you go on vacation and you're in Europe,
Yep,
you're probably doing more walking. So that's
that
super
too.
important. If we get our 10,000 steps in a day, we are golden. And so that's what we should strive for. But also, yes, it's not laden in chemicals over there. And
Hmm.
even the chocolate, all of that is so much healthier. But because it's allowed into this country, it's really hurting us. And our toxic load just builds and builds until we get sick. And people are getting autoimmune diseases or undiagnosed sickness, or they just can't figure out how to lose weight. And a lot of times, if we just switch it up to get rid of this chemicals in our diet, you're going to do so much better. So eating whole foods is really important.
No, that's an excellent tip right there. And we're not crazy. We know something is being done right in Europe. It's the walking, it's the food, no tummy aches, no weird gastro
That's
things
right.
going on. So, now, last but not least, before you give your suggestion, let's talk about how and what we think and how much it can impact our health.
Absolutely. So the thinking is so important. These are our emotions. This is being mindful. It's even breathing properly and setting a clear intention to be a happy, healthy person who takes care of themselves. And so mindfulness, it doesn't have to be a tricky thing. It can literally, it's being in the present moment because we don't want to be worrying. Worrying increases our stress level, and our emotional stress actually controls how our body, the cells are listening when we're stressed out or when we're worried or when we're giving ourselves negative self talk. This actually affects us physically as well. So, mindfulness can be as easy as sitting and watching the sunset or holding our significant other's hand, hanging out with our kiddos or just petting our dog, that kind of thing. But really, we need to be enjoying the present moment and not worrying and not giving ourselves this negative self talk. Because even out of about 70,000 thoughts that we have each and every day, probably 70% of those are negative. We're worrying, but literally, this can cause physical health problems that we can't get rid of. So if we also set intentions to be healthy and focus on the positives that are working for us instead of the negatives, that goes a long, long way, especially in this holiday stress zone.
Yeah, especially now because we're thinking about, I mean, the holidays bring up a lot, right? It's very exciting, but maybe you had a rough year. Maybe you had loss in your
Yep.
family. Maybe you're stressed out
Mhm.
about work. So you're trying to balance all of these things, which are real life concerns, along with trying to make this holiday as perfect as possible, which comes with its own stress, right? Trees got to be perfect, gifts have to be
Yep.
just like this, the meal has to be just right. So, what are a couple of tips that you could give for people to just calm down? And I'm asking, yes, I'm
Mhm.
asking for myself.
Well, I love to do some breathing exercises, especially if you've heard of box breathing. It's really easy to remember because you're going to take the same amount of time breathing in. Maybe you breathe in for 6 seconds, you hold it for 6 seconds, and then you exhale for 6 seconds, and then you hold it for 6 seconds. This actually helps calm your nervous system and put you into a parasympathetic instead of sympathetic. So you're not going fight or flight anymore. And then, mindfulness, it could be meditation. I actually love meditating and I never used to, but this is also one of the secrets as well. So if you can just sit quietly for 5 minutes, take 5 minutes for yourself each and every morning, where you're just literally trying to clear your mind or listen to some good music that's calming, that's a great way. If you feel like you are getting stressed out and you're with your family, just, go into another room and sit down and just take your own time out like you would give to your kids if they're having an issue, because you really owe it to yourself to be there and keep yourself first and foremost in mind. Because if you're not filling your own cup, you can't help other people. So take a break when you need it. And it's progress over perfection. So many times, just like you said, we want to have the tree right, we want to do this, we want to get the perfect gift, but that's not what it's about. It's really about just being here now and being in the moment, because worry is not going to take you anywhere good.
Yeah, and it's not going to change anything at all.
Exactly.
At
No.
all. Dr. Meadows, this is incredible information. Tell us about your book and how people can get their hands on it.
Sure, you can get my book it's Me First Secrets of Self-Care. You can get it on Amazon. It's in Kindle format, and that's the easiest way. And then my website, drleahmeadows.com, you can go there as well.
That is
Yep,
awesome. Thank you so much
perfect.
for taking the time to speak with us this morning. We really appreciate you.
Absolutely. It's been great. And my goal is for people just to take better self-care. So I appreciate you having
I
me
know,
on.
and you make it seem attainable, right? I'm going to go off script a little because sometimes it feels like
Yeah.
it's so overwhelming. And where am I going to get time to journal for 20 minutes in the morning? I got to be at work at this time. And when am I supposed to take this break in the middle of the day?
Yeah.
But these are things that are very doable, and this makes it feel attainable. So we thank you for the information.
Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, it does. I mean, it makes self-care sound simple, but because
Yeah.
people are not taking care of themselves, this is the message that everybody needs to hear. It
Yes,
really is.
indeed.
So,
Indeed.
it's been
Again,
great.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, people, if that doesn't help you get on the right track with simple steps, then that's as simple as I've ever had anyone ever put it. Kari, how about you?
Listen, first of all, that
I
young
know
lady
you
is
have a lot to
outstanding.
say. She's amazing.
I got to talk to her for a quick second yesterday when we were getting ready for this, and I told Tati, I was like, we're going to be in for a good time.
Yeah.
She very, very simply put everything the way that a person, the layest of the layman
Yeah.
could take and work with, and I always, when there's a doctor on and they say make sure you drink water. Super quick story. Back about 10 years ago, we had a doctor come through, and he gave us here at the station a challenge, and was like, what I want you to do is take a week, and just only drink water. And I was like, well, you used the word challenge, so you count me in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just from that, it became me only drinking water for an incredibly long time. It was like just only water and tea. And for the most part, been able to keep that up. So it's like sometimes you just need somebody to tell you,
Yeah.
like, hey, this little one thing. You might not be able to do two of those three secrets. Try one of them and
That's
just
right.
focus on that for a little bit. See what happens, and you might be sitting as a producer for Tati.
You're so funny. But listen, you need something that feels like when you read these things and it's like a journal, this much, meditate in the morning,
Yeah.
get a 30-minute walk in. If you can, more power to you. And I think that that's amazing. That's not what we do. And I
Right.
don't think that that's what most people in America have the ability to do in the morning, especially for people who have to drop off their kids. Maybe you're packing lunches. Maybe you're trying to get yourself together. Like, I'm going through emails first thing in the morning because I'm just drawn to it because I know that something can be waiting for me when I do get back to work. So something as simple as just get up when the phone buzzes, move around a little bit more, drink
Right.
your water, and just try to stay away from the pesticides as opposed to saying remove all of this from your diet, that from your diet, the things that then you look in your fridge and your fridge is filled with all of those things,
Right.
that you're like, you know how much groceries are? I'm about to
Yeah.
finish this before. It's not happening. So very, very easy to follow tips, and we appreciate Dr. Meadows for being with us.